he just kicked everybody's butt. I mean, we can talk about short track racing and quality of race and all these kind of things, but you just got to give Denny Hamlin, Chris Gale, and this team the credit. I mean, they just went out and flat out got it done. They got it done on pit road, got it done on the racetrack. Just a really, really good day.
Yeah, we talk about how the race was won. So there's so many things I want to unlock, right? The weekend we had demolition derbies. Luckily, we didn't have that today. I guess what I would say is this is Martinsville. It's okay if fans don't like it. So I don't like telling fans what they should or shouldn't like, right? Like fans can like whatever they want. So it's okay if you didn't like this. But if you didn't like this, then you don't like Martinsville, or at least the Martinsville that I want to see. It had a little bit of everything. What do I mean by that? Cautions early that jumbled up the field. Tires had value but weren't so valuable. These people that say that you always used to put tires on at Martinsville, that's wrong. 2005, I won my first race with Jeff Gordon, basically staying out kind of by mistake, got some track position. It's a long story. But even back then, you didn't take tires every single time. You know this as well as anyone, Jeff, right? How it used to be like when you had back-to-back yellows, it was like instant heartburn because you didn't know when you should have pitted and how you should have went. That's what I got today. I got some beating and banging. I got some mad drivers. I saw Joey Logano was mad or frustrated. We saw some other drivers spun around. That was racing to me, not demolition derby.
Yeah, and look, I'm good with that. I mean, I'm good. We clearly saw cars that were good early versus cars that were good late. Denny Hamlin was good the entire time. I mean, he just flat out had short run speed. He had long run speed. He had that magic that we all hope to have when we go to Martinsville. We saw other guys, Christopher Bell looked like maybe he could beat, maybe he could take the fight. We saw Chase Elliott. Maybe he could take the fight to Denny Hamlin. But on long runs, Denny just drove away from him. And I don't know, Steve, if that's Denny cat and mousing him, like, all right, buddy, here you are. You can stay close if you want to stay close. And now I'm just going to steadily drive away from you. Or if that's the magic, we've seen it before with Denny, where he's able to make long run speed at Martinsville, at short tracks. He has 15 short track wins. He knows what he's doing. And clearly that ability to save a little bit of tire, make the right amount of pace, clearly that's part of Denny Hamlin's magic and why he's won so many short track races. And we saw it again today. And we saw other people and or their setups not be able to do that. And I just think you have to give them credit for the job that they did. And again, I want to mention Chris Gale because, Denny talked about, they were a little bit in a rut. They weren't doing what they used to do. He wasn't as successful at Martinsville. Chris Gale went with a whole new idea. Let's try something different. Denny trusted it, and they get a win early in the season. And now, at 44 years old, and by the way, there's only two drivers that have won championships after 44 years old, Bobby Allison and Lee Petty. Denny Hamlin will have a chance to go win a championship. And he knows he's got to get it done, Steve. I mean, it's clear that he does not have as much racing ahead of him as he does behind him. This allows them to focus, take the pressure off. They know, without some crazy happening, they're going to be in the playoffs. Now, that takes a ton of pressure off. And now Denny Hamlin and Chris Gale can go about winning, building a team that can win a championship. And getting a win this early for a new pairing, I think, is huge. Because now, when they make those mistakes, which they're going to make, we all make them, it doesn't mean as much. And I just believe this is a huge advantage for that pairing.
I brought this up. Our follower, Henry, put this in here. Why are we seeing the right side? Rear bumper's getting caked up with rubber. What's the difference between this and basically 10 years ago when Denny won? And I bring this comment up because this circles into everything you kind of were saying, right? So what's the ingredients to the soup? Well, first of all, there isn't a recipe that you just follow and make the perfect soup. That's not how Martinsville works. If that was the case, a lot of race car drivers would have won there. It's not that easy, and that's why people love the grandfather clock so much. So let's start with the guy behind the wheel, because as much as I would love to say it's the crew chief, and I agree with you that Chris Gale had a huge hand in this, right? The guy behind the wheel has to be the star to begin with, and I think Denny has a unique ability to do nothing. And I know it's going to sound crazy, but I've looked at Denny's data for 25 years. And Harvick talked about it on the broadcast. What Denny can do is nothing. He can let the car work. And I'm talking like an extra 10 feet. but it all starts like corner entry speed has to be perfect. You have to roll off the brake the right way because you can't overslow the car. Then if you're not picking up the throttle, you're just going slower, right? He somehow enters with the right speed. And he actually had a car that can enter high and cross the rubber or kind of chase the curb, which is magical. So he kind of goes in, gets to this perfect speed where he can do nothing for an extra 10 feet. And that sounds so dumb, but Jeff, you know what I'm talking about, right? That left front starts to get back to the curb and he gets into power one time. And I think that's the magic of the long run Denny Hamlin. Like even right there, his car is this is coming to the checker, no big deal. And he's still an easy half a lane lower than most on exit. His car, the front tire, it's as simple as this. The front tires work so magically through the middle that he doesn't have to abuse the rears on exit, right? Like he can literally turn, like if you're in a parking lot and you're going slow and you turn your car goes that direction. Well, these guys are pushing to the limit of those front tires. So when you turn and it doesn't, well, now you kind of pick up the gas and now you start to wear like he just lets everything work like it's supposed to. And I do believe I don't call it cat and mouse. I call it an older race car driver who's won 55 times, right? I think he backed up to the 9. He backed up to the 20. He used just enough Goodyear tire to control the race. I mean, that was what we saw. Listen, Chase Elliott said, how about his comments? Get out after the race. He said, I needed to get control of the race. That was the difference. All the way back at the end of stage 2, Jeff, we're talking halfway through the race. That was where he felt like his opportunity to win had gone away. We talk a lot about how the race was won, how the race was lost on this. And I think that comment's very important for this show because that's what I want the fans to understand is that these drivers see this race as this total event. We do have restarts 3 wide. It's great, but this wasn't. This was a 400 lap chess match that Chase couldn't get in front of Denny, and he felt like that was it. That was the end of his chance.
So you've been lucky enough to work with some of the best ever at Martinsville, right? Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, and those guys, Denny Hamlin, those guys have a way of driving their car, doing things with their car, and knowing exactly what it won't do so they can tell you, hey, I need it to do
that's
that, right? And this is where we have to be good. And when Chase Elliott says, I needed control of the race, let's explain that. So why does track position matter? Like it's a half-mile racetrack. Why does it matter?
Right, it's not aero, right? You're not aero blocking. You're not at Kansas. Yeah.
So when you have control of the race and you're leading the race and you want to move your entry, the angle of entry, leaving the wall, getting to the bottom of the racetrack, if you want to move that 2 feet and you have the lead and nobody's on your bumper, you have flexibility to do that. You don't have to run defensive. You can now run a line that makes the car go the fastest versus a line that you're trying to pass someone or prevent from being passed. It's 2 different things. Playing defense is not the fastest way around a racetrack. Playing offense many times is not the fast way around the racetrack. It's being able to be precise. And I think fans think that if you just drive harder, it'll go faster. No, the harder you drive it, the slower it goes. It is about lifting off that gas pedal and touching the brake. And if you miss it by 10 feet, think about that. If you miss it by 10 feet at the speed that you're going, you've messed the lap up. If you miss where your left front tire is on the curb at the point of the corner where you want it, you've messed the lap up. And what we're talking about here is less than 1/10 of a second between doing it right and not doing it right. And when you have control of the race, you now have the ability to move around. As Dave Fox did a great job today of showing the rubber on the racetrack. You had to change the way you drove. The more rubber got on the racetrack, you had to keep changing what you were doing. Having control of the race gives you freedom. When you're back here in the middle of the pack, they showed some in-car camera from the 21 car and the chaos that he was in. You're just trying to get yourself around the damn racetrack without wrecking something. Denny Hamlin's able to he's out there like a surgeon, man, slicing that thing up perfectly. Everybody else is in the middle of a fight. And when Chase Elliott talks about controlling the race, that's what he's talking about. Is now I can drive my car 100% the way I want to drive it versus having to be on offense or having to be on defense. And that matters at this racetrack. Precision is what wins races at Martinsville.
It does. Reading we have a bunch of comments, and we're going to get to it. I see some comments about the Xfinity Series race. We are definitely going to have a conversation about that. Jeff has been waiting 24 hours from that. If you're just tuning in and it looks like I'm a mess and I haven't shaved, I've been traveling all day. Be thankful my daughter's traveling with me because I'm on her computer. My mic's here. It doesn't work. I couldn't get it to, I mean, it's been quite the day. So I apologize if I'm 30 minutes late. I appreciate everybody was hanging around to talk about this show. I think we all agree. DH was great. Let me go through my list of other things I know we wanted to cover here. Denny, amazing. Chris Gale, 7 different crew chiefs. The stats are kind of out of control, really, for him. We talked about Chase Elliott. Should we just get a little bit in the mechanical? I know we have Todd Gordon standing by. Let's bring Todd Gordon in and let's talk about. We had. You name it, we've had it. Let's see. See, I can look even on a different computer, Todd. I can get you in here. Todd, first of all, appreciate it. You still at Martinsville?
Yeah, up in the booth. They're tearing down our broadcast booth as we speak, but overlooking Martinsville with the LED lights on.
It's going to, you tell all the production staff, beers on me, apparently, because I'm delaying everyone's night. So let's have this conversation. First of all, let's talk about what we were just talking about, the tire rubber, because I did think Fox did a really great job of showing it. Was it the normal one that you and I remember from on top of the pit box, right? It would cake up. You kind of have to straddle it getting in to get picked up under yellow, kind of the signature of soft tire rubber on a concrete track.
To me, it didn't get to what we used to see. It got really black, but I don't feel like it ever got to the point that it laid on top of itself where it'd start to kind of roll up and become wormy. Back when you and I were calling this race, it almost looked like gummy worms at one point, that way it would roll up and then you'd have to straddle that. You couldn't really drive over it. This place got really dark, but it didn't really get to the point where it just rolled that rubber back up. But you saw the guys when it got dark, that they had to enter above it. You saw guys that would intentionally enter second groove and try to turn down and exit straight. It did lay rubber. It just didn't do what we used to see, say 10, 12, 15 years ago.
Well, we had, Martinsville all over again, right? We had some mechanicals. We saw batteries. We saw a wheel fall off SVG's car. We saw some drivers have trouble with their driving suits. Some of that was electrical load. I guess, where do you want to start? Jeff, what fascinated you? I know in our text thread, you wanted to bring up the wheels, right? I heard the Fox guys talking about the wheels coming off. SVG had another one come off. So I got to be really careful dancing the line here because the crew chief in me says that the system should be a little bit more robust and not so easy for a wheel to fall off. The analyst in me says if you take 11 seconds, the wheels will never fall off. I don't know what the right is. If we somehow could just ignore the safety, which we can't, but if we could ignore the safety for a moment, that there are fans on site and a driver who has to ride this vehicle off into turn one with potentially a wheel coming off, I like that it's a human element. Like, I believe it's human. I believe that the pit crews are going fast and you can go too fast and you literally can touch fire. What makes the conversation tougher for me is it's not just the fact. I'm okay with coming back in and getting penalized and ruining your day. What I can't sign up for is when we go to Michigan in the summer and that happens at 200 miles. And I feel like we have an obligation to the guy in the car. Todd, am I crazy?
Yeah, well, we do. But, you look at this and part of it today was a little surprise. Situational awareness. This happened on a green flag pit cycle. And really, on a green flag cycle, Steve, you've been here too. A 9.5 second stop or a 10-second stop on a green flag cycle doesn't matter. That's the piece. When we get down, when we want to split tenths of seconds on pit stops, that's on a yellow flag cycle. That's going to make you 2 spots on pit road. But heck, 3/4 of a second, probably at worst, is going to cost you 1 position when you're in a pit cycle coming around. Really losing 1 here, I think it's situational awareness for the 88 team. A new group kind of put together. This was the 3rd group at Trackhouse, so I think there's some learning to do there. But I don't know. The crew chief in me says this leads back to situational awareness and understanding a right rear being loose here. You got to take that 0.2 of a second to look and make sure everything's good as you're running around the car.
Jeff, you're the guy that's been riding in these things for your whole life. Give us the perspective from that guy strapped in.
Well, I think the biggest concern for me, and look, I'm not saying something needs to change. I think it's on the pit crews. I think it's their responsibility to get the thing tight. And we have this same mechanism in other series and they don't have these problems. The fact of the matter is we're having these problems because they're just going too fast. And that's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. The thing I don't like about it from a driver standpoint is he didn't know. I mean, it used to be that your wheel was loose and you're like, hey, I got a vibration. I got something wrong. You ride it out, see if it's okay. It's not getting better. I'm going to come down and pit. Now the damn tire just comes off. And that's the part of it I don't like. But the question for me is this something for NASCAR to fix, or is this something for the teams to fix? And this isn't a new conversation. And that's why I put it in our chat is like, what year is this?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't the first year, and this continues to happen. And I because of that, it makes me think, okay, do we need to rethink this? Do we need to rethink the way it works? Or do we need to continue to go down the same path and say, okay, it's on the teams and we're going to penalize you because the problem is still there? And I think what's the definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So whatever we're doing is not changing the end result to the extent that I think it should change it. But again, I believe we're in sports and it's up to the athletes to get the job done. And I'm not sure it's up to NASCAR to make it easier to do the job, but I'm conflicted at the moment.
So I have a couple things. One, the penalty isn't as steep as it was. It's been adjusted. Has that changed the approach on the risk? I don't know. The other thing I will say, and this goes counterintuitive, everybody thinks I'm crazy, but I think we have too few crew members. That's an unpopular statement in the garage. It's an unpopular statement with some of the owners. But I believe that if we had more crew members performing the pit stop, I think there would be less issues. Every time we reduce the number of crew members, it's done for multiple reasons. The only one I can get behind is there's less guys dancing on pit road when cars are driving down it. I can get behind that one. But all the other reasons I'm given, I don't buy. I see other sporting events where I don't know how many guys are on a Formula One pit stop, but it's going to be 10 or 15, and we see IMSA and just all these different rules. And all I'll say is, I think if you had 2 tire carriers, 2 tire changers, and a jack, I don't think the stops get a whole lot faster. And I think people are watching their job, not jack to tire, tire to jack. The orchestration doesn't allow for a pit crew member to focus on one thing. I could be totally wrong. I'd love to test that theory with some pit crew coaches and see what it was like with a true, I call it a 6-man pit crew, a gas man who only gasses 2 tire carriers, 2 tire changes, and a jack man, Todd. I'd like to just see what that orchestration looks like.
Yeah, to your point, if you think back to when we had the extra carrier, the carrier actually indexed the wheel and held it there until the nut got hit.
Right.
And that's part of what we're fighting here is that, that jack man has to, as soon as he hangs the tire on the front.
Right. Hey, back that one up again.
He's gone.
Nick's running the video. Back this up. And when he hangs the right front tire, to Todd's point, I want everybody to watch that. He hangs that tire, Todd, and he goes back to the jack before he ever tightens it up.
And he has no ability. Like back in the day when we had carriers, the jack man actually could stand, especially on the left side, he could stand and kind of just bounce his head back and forth and look both ways to see which one, if there's an issue. Now, when he hangs the left rear, he's not even listening. I mean, he's not even listening to the front guy. He's just assuming that the front's got it and going back and ripping the jack out, because that's how you make these. They're dancing in the 8 seconds at this point. I mean, I saw several 9.5 second stops today. There's just not time with the people they have. The carrier has to drop a tire. That's an extra step. He comes to the back. He's behind. He's slamming a tire in there, and he's got to figure out how to get back around and get to the left front. So I don't disagree with you. I think if we had another carrier, it would calm this down a little bit, but it might speed the pit stops up where we're not high. Maybe we're mid-8s at that point, but maybe it'll alleviate some of this. I think the piece that the 88 car had today was back to situational awareness. If we're trying to run that fast under caution, then when the tire comes off, it's not such a safety issue because you're doing that under caution. It's the green flag sites, stops. You've got to come to the point where you spend the extra half a second to make sure you're not in danger.
Todd, I was telling him to back it up, and I forgot I had the control ability to do this. I just want to see it right here. So just follow me here, guys. Right front tire's coming off. This is going to seem really simple, but I think this is what Todd's talking about. That. So this jack man, he's going to hang this right front tire. Now I'm going to pause it about right there. Okay, look, there is not a gun tightening the wheel yet, and there's not a tire carrier holding that wheel in position. Like right now, that wheel is literally just placed on there. So when Nick Odell here tightens this up, he hopes that it stays where it was, but that's really what you're talking about, right? Because, back in the day, I would sit there and I would hold. Now, when I said, I'm talking way back before you had to be an athlete, when they allowed me to be on a pit crew, you would hold that wheel up against the hub until really the second lug nut was hit, and then I could leave. Now, remember, this was 14 seconds. So I'm not blaming the pit crews because I think they're also being coached this way. It's a situational awareness, I think is a great way to put it, Todd, that, these guys are doing what they're asked, which are fast pit stops. So there you go. Hammer the gavel. We think if we go slower, the wheels will stay tight. It's just that simple, Jeff. Just slow down.
Well, and I mean, is there some sort of mechanism? Is there something that we could do to the hub that had a safety lock or something that the wheel may not be tight, but it won't come off? I don't know.
The pin is supposed to do that, but that's only if the nut has to go far enough on to even get over the pin. Right to your point, does the pin have to be moved out? There's a lot of ways. A redesign isn't out of the question.
Yeah, I feel like that pin only comes out and retains the nut once the nut's within, say, probably less than a 16th of being tight. This is a situation, if the wheel, to your point, when they hang it, if the wheel comes back off or gets slightly cockeyed on those pins and doesn't go all the way in, that maybe if it were back, at a quarter, 3/8 of an inch, then at least it holds the nut on there. And then, Jeff, you as a driver, you have that sensation because you don't have a wheel that's tight and it's wobbling around.
Right. That's my point, is that you still have to pit, but you would know it and you could come in and fix it. I just wonder if it could. And look, I think the big thing for us too, if you think about IMSA, if you think about Formula One, if you think about IndyCar, is we have so many pit stops.
Yeah.
We have so many pit stops and we have so many cars. And you guys know most of the time they're not filling these cars up with fuel. They're trying to get the stop done as quickly as possible. If you watch other races, they're sitting there waiting for fuel, and then they leave. Well, that makes it easier for a tire changer because he's not in the rush. But these guys are waiting on the jack to fall, not the fuel to get done. That's a major difference.
I don't think a car that ran in the top 10 tonight was full with fuel at any point tonight. They're not. They don't need to. It's just where they're at. But if you look at IndyCar has a gun on all four corners.
That's right.
They're not as athletic getting around the car and trying to do those things. And I think that's what separates us a little bit and puts these athletes on display. But you have to, as a crew chief, we have to make sound decisions.
And then real quick, Steve, I was very concerned when we went to this single lug nut that it was going to take away from the essence of what NASCAR is. And that is not just a driver, not just a crew chief. The pit crew members have always been a massive part of this sport. I was afraid that was going to go away because of what Todd just talked about. Every other form of racing, they have 4 guys, right? And it's not very special. This is really special to watch. And these guys are athletes. And we haven't lost the competition on pit road the way I thought we were going to lose it. And so I don't want to take that away. In no way do I want that to go away because that's part of our culture. That's part of our history. And it's a great part of what we do. But enough about lug nuts.
Well, let's jump into the other big mechanical thing because I have a lot I want to get to. Xfinity Series race. I got some the NASCAR Insight stats I want to dig into and kind of break through all of this. I'm a little disconjointed here. I'm working off my phone and off the computer. Let's talk batteries. A bunch of batteries. Josh Berry, good car. Cindric had to go behind the wall. Is it as simple? I believe it's as simple as a tremendous amount of electrical load, and these cars now cycle. So the charging system is more complicated than it used to be because nobody wants to pull power away from the engine. It's really we're having the same conversation as the pit stops, right? If you take everything to the 1/10 of 1%, the margin of error is very small. So these alternators can fail. They can not charge adequately. And that all becomes more complicated with electrical draw at a place like Martinsville with so many fans.
And this is a place that you have to make those decisions. I know back in my days, we picked alternators. We had a 100 amp alternator. We had a 130 amp alternator. Well, a 100 amp alternator was a pound lighter. And when you race Martinsville, every pound that's sitting not in the frame rails is a big deal to you. And you look at the amp draws, but we've got to have brake cooling fans in the rear and the front for all the brake that happens. Like we talked about, the driver cooling suits. when you look at all this stuff, they have battery failures. And it was odd to see that out of the 21 car. They're in the car right here. In our day, it used to be the left rear, but now it's inside the battery compartment is in the side, in the floorboard on the right side. They had to get in and change batteries. 21 car did this, I think, twice during the race. The 2 car did it at least 3 times, maybe 4. And what I heard is alternator failures, and they just didn't have enough battery power to run what they needed to run the race. They had to keep swapping them out.
And I think this goes parallel. We see power steering issues at the beginning of this car. I believe the power steering system in general was just not sufficient. I think the garage knew it. NASCAR knew it. A lot of people knew it. I'm not willing to hang every power steering issue on that anymore. Some of the new power steering issues I see are some of these same issues: pumps, pulleys, pulley ratios, team decisions. Now, there are still parts, right? I'm not going to let anybody off the hook. I guess my point is I'm not letting the teams off the hook either, right? I'm not hanging this on this, quote, single source part. The application of the part still matters as well.
Yeah, and the way you operate it. I mean, you know, I'm sure to your day, we would shut alternators off for restarts. We'd leave them off and run because that alternator drew 3 horsepower when it was trying to get 100 amps out of it. And then when you do turn it back on, now the battery's down, the alternator's running at max load until it can get some of that power back in the battery. So it's a tough situation. This is the first one of the year, and I'm sure, you know, as we continue to evolve, all these crew chiefs want to save every piece, every little morsel they can to be more performance.
Hey, I'd like to step in here real quick. I want, for all you guys that are watching, you're listening to 2 of the brightest minds in our sport that have won races at the highest level. And what you're hearing them talking about is the decisions that they have to make. And they can't make decisions where they know everything's going to be okay. They have to make decisions where they know it's going to go fast. You're on a razor's edge. You don't go out and beat the best teams, the best drivers, by playing it safe. It doesn't happen. You have to be on the edge of everything. So what you're hearing is these 2 guys that have been there, done that had to make these decisions. This is not a sport of just build it so it's heavy, build it so it's strong, build it so it can live. This is a sport of build it so it's fast. That's number 1, right? And it is so much more precise than I think the fans recognize. And there's so many more decisions than I think the fans recognize. And it's just awesome listening to you 2. And I hope the fans recognize, because it's the decisions that they have to make every single minute of the day. Everything about a setup, about people, about everything is about how does it go fast. That rules the world is speed.
And there's catch-up decisions, and I'm already pretty fast decisions, because we're trying to go faster. You're willing to take a bigger risk. And if you're already pretty good, you know, you're willing to probably, you know, maybe be a little bit more conservative until somebody else jumps up.
And this race is the one that I'm going to be more aggressive, because I'm going to figure out how aggressive I can be on that. So I've got that in my notebook when we come back here, because it's a pretty important race in the playoffs.
Well, let's jump right into that. So I had somebody, let me find it right here. Somebody, a fan. I want to highlight the fans because they're here hanging out with us right here. Early domination about JGR. It was okay right here. This is the one. DH win. Does that secure him a spot in the Final Four, right? Like, so his question is this the thing? Let's circle it back to Denny real quick, and then I'll let Todd finally get on the road and get the MRN folks allowed to tear down the rest of that thing. It's a long ways to the end of the year. You know, Phoenix and Martinsville have huge gaps between the spring and the fall. Look, Denny's win is a good thing. I'm never going to say it's not a good thing, but do I think that makes him the favorite? I mean, yeah, maybe the favorite, but it also gives other teams a whole summer to look at his driving data and video. His race at Martinsville will be broken down more than the Mona Lisa gets a picture taken. I mean, you know, that's the only problem, right? Is when you stand there and you flag the 11 against the world flag in today's world, every single lap of that car will be broken down by everybody who's going to have to try to run with them in the fall and see. And maybe they'll unlock it or maybe they won't. I don't know the answer, but I will tell you the effort's going to be there.
Yeah, I look at this and say JGR as a whole. when you look, all 4 cars had speed. And that's something that I don't feel like they've had. And so kudos to them for putting themselves in this position. Does this mean that he's going to win the
Todd, is this your secret burner account right here? Because this is what this person wants to know with this domination by JGR. So I don't know if I was calling out your burner account.
I'm not that I can't do that and talk here. I can't do 2 things at once. So, but no, I think it's good for a JGR. I think it gives them a great stepping stone. Denny talked about they had some things they had to work on. He wouldn't tell us what they were, but they felt like afterwards it showed that they made improvements. Do I think this makes him the odds-on favorite for the fall? I'm not going to bet against Ryan Blaney. He's won the last 2 fall races here. So I think it puts him in the mix. And I think that's something JGR needed to do. And they've done that successfully. Their notebook's going to be really stacked for the fall.
All right. Well, Todd, I'm going to let you go. Appreciate you taking the time. Appreciate you hanging out. Sorry for my tech delays, but you knew that was going to happen at some point.
Yes. Yeah. All good. All good. Glad to be on.
All right. Travel safe. This week on NASCAR's Instagram and Twitter, on their website, we've been talking about it. Our friends at Racing Insights have helped to come up with some smarter, I call them smarter stats. NASCAR Insights will be a new way for the fan to understand exactly how the race is broken down, the way we can then analyze maybe who deserved something or earned something. So they come in a bunch of different ways, but let's talk about the simple ones. The first one that I think is the easiest is like a speed score, right? And it's who had the most speed. Then there is defense, which is pretty straightforward. It's how can you defend, right? Then there's passing, right? How can you pass? There's also a restart metric as well in there. So when I look at, the stats coming out of here, I'm going to go to my email here. Denny Hamlin was number 1 on speed, right? He won the race. Number 3 on passing, number 1 on pit crew, number 2 on restarts. He had a poor defensive score of 28th. You see his defensive rate of 28th. Well, he didn't have to have a lot of defense because he led all day, never really lost position. When I look at speed, so I kind of look at speed versus finishing order and try to find the standouts. So for me, Ryan Preece, right? So if you look in the middle of the screen, the rank is to the left of the score, right? The scores in the ranks are very difficult, but Hamlin was 1 on speed, Bell 5 on speed, Wallace 3, Elliott 2, Larson 4, Chastain 8, then Preece all the way down at 21st. So how are you 21st on speed, but finish very well? Well, you do other things well. He's 14th on restarts, 13th on defense. You have to kind of break a different way down. I like these stats. I think they kind of help us really show up. I mean, long run and short run. When you're the best at both for Denny Hamlin, that's a pretty good way to look at
it. Yeah. So wait, if you're the fastest and you have the best pit crew, you stand a good chance of winning?
You can write that down. That's the recipe.
These are great to look at. I like looking at them for the whole year too, right? You really start to get an understanding when you look at it for the season, where people are strong, where people are weak. You're talking about Preece, how do you claw that finish out? And that's when you got to go back and you got to recognize it. He did a good job on restarts. He had good short run speed. He played good defense. He got his position and he kept it. And those are the kind of things that you have to do. And he's done it multiple times this year. He's had a really good start of the year. And Todd Gilliland, I see you got him highlighted. He's another guy that had a good day. Ty Dillon, he had a good day. Ty Dillon had a really good day. Finished 15th. Look at his speed. 20th ranked speed. Defense 5th. That's part of Martinsville is you have to have – he had reasonable speed, but he did a good job of maintaining his track position. And he had a good day. He was in the top 20 all day long. That's a good day for Ty Dillon and that team. So given an opportunity to look a little deeper in the field and understanding how they made that happen, that's what's cool about these stats, Steve.
Yeah, they're good. And when you look at the season long, which I have them in front of me, there's no real surprise. Larson is 1 on speed. William Byron is 2 on speed. Reddick 3. Blaney 4, Bell 5. So all the guys you would expect. But there are some interesting standouts. Like Ross Chastain is number 3 on restarts, number 3 on passing. Aggressive driver. So I can believe that. Aggressive can be good if you can control it. It can get a little carried away at other times. But I was wondering if there'd be some standouts. But to be honest, when I look at Martinsville, I see that so guy one was one. We have 1, 5, 3, 2, 4. When you have a race without late yellows and long green flag runs and not a lot of strategy in the second half of the race, the fastest cars go to the front, right? Like the only driver with single digit speed who didn't finish inside the top 10 was Todd Gibbs, and he had his issues. So we can easily find out why he got spun around. I think that just proves that this speed ranking, I look at his potential. So how I look at these stats is very simple. Speed is kind of the potential of your vehicle and your driver for the year, your vehicle and your driver on this day. So then the question is, if your potential is single digit and you didn't finish single digit, why? Or the opposite, if you're a 12th or 15th place in the speed. So let's look at the exact opposite. There wasn't really a whole lot. Well, here's Josh Berry, 12th on speed, finished all the way in the back. We know what happened to him, but there's the standout, right? He had a mechanical issue. Ricky Stenhouse, 32nd on speed, but finished 20th. I know that seems silly, but if you're the 47 team, got caught speeding twice early, there's some things you have to clean up. I think there's some sort of internal execution second half of the race that worked for this team. Now, they obviously need to be faster, or maybe their speed was because they were stuck in traffic all day. Maybe they would have to – Ricky may not have loved his car. I haven't talked to him about it specifically, but he didn't have a lot of potential, but yet finished much higher than his speed. That shows you a team that executed in other areas.
That's the word, right? Is executed. And doing, you're going to have bad days. And, Jack Roush said to me, don't make a bad day worse, right? Find a way to make a bad day better. Find a way to get a result that's better than what you deserved. And that's what the best can do, right? I mean, honestly, that's what, if you look at champions in our sport, it's the guys that take an 8th place day and finish 4th, right? And that's really important. And you mentioned Ty Gibbs. He finished 13th, but he had good speed. He got stage points. First time this year, got stage points and got the best finish he's had since Talladega in the fall. So they've been miserable. Like they have had horrible finishes with all sorts of issues, getting spun out, coming back, finishing 13th. He was mad. He made that clear on the radio. He kept his cool. Team kept him in a position. Hey, man, let's go get something. He did. Got stage points, finished 13th. That's something that team can build on. I mean, it's not what they want by any means. But as hard as this sport is, Steve, and you've been in the middle of it, man, it is an excruciating way to make a living, especially when things aren't going well. When you can look at a 13th and say, all right, we had good speed. We did some good things. We got spun out. Wasn't our fault. What could we have done differently? That's something you can build on. They haven't had anything they could build on. And that's the other thing that happens is those stats that we were just talking about is, you and I, our life all along has been when I get out of the car and you'd walk to the car and we'd look up at that pylon, that's what we are. We were 20th, we were first. That's who we are. But on Monday, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about, okay, that's where we are, but why are we there, right? And sometimes we had a best car and finished 20th with it. Sometimes we had a 5th place car and we won with it somehow, right? But you have to be honest with where you are. And I think for Ty Gibbs and that team, they can look at those stats. They can take this day, say we're disappointed with 13th, but that's actually a good thing, and we can build on this. There's other teams that say, Priest, they're not happy with their speed, but they execute it, right? So how can they go faster? And I think that's such an important part about what these race teams do is understanding what your weaknesses are, understand what your strengths are, find a way to be better. Don't just look at the scoreboard. The scoreboard matters because at the end of the day, that's how you're judged. But why are you there? And these stats help you do that.
Well, you talk about speed, a points awarded for the fastest lap of the race. And this week it went for the winner. Denny Hamlin back at lap 195. Jeff and I love when these line up. I'd love to look. It was a Denny day. I mean, I don't know. It's easy to say, but we is it hard to believe it's been 10 years? So yeah. 10 years. All right. Well, look, the fans have hung around for it. Jeff has been waiting for it. Please, do we have the Xfinity Series finish? highlight. Let's put this up. This was Saturday. Going into the last corner, bumper cars turned into wreck fest. I think it's fair to say that the 8, make sure I get all the car numbers right, because I don't do Xfinity series. I don't do it at all this year, but I want to make sure I get them all right. 54 has a healthy lead, right? The gray has a healthy lead. The 8 comes in, runs him over from behind. Then I think off screen, either the 21 gets the 7 or the 7 gets the 8, or I'm not sure exactly what happens. And then chaos ensues. Jeff, the floor is yours. This is not this type of Martinsville racing. I mean, I love the track. It's my favorite track. And when I see finishes like that, it frustrates me to no end.
Well, it wasn't the problem, Steve, too, is it wasn't just the finish. Like, the entire race was just unacceptable. People intentionally running into people intentionally wrecking people. It's just unacceptable. And what's so frustrating about it is that, you know, you'll see on social media where these young brats, they don't care, they're not talented. Bull crap. These are very good race car drivers. These guys have talent. It's not that they don't have talent. It's that there's the lack of respect, the lack of accountability, right, for these kind of actions. And I would say, look, I'm going to say a name that most people probably don't know. Emmanuel Zarakis. If you don't know him, look him up, because where I grew up, he was a big deal. And we had a rather ruckus race one night at South Boston Speedway, and I had to go to Richmond, Virginia to get some parts to fix some of the stuff that I tore up. And we were talking about it, and he said to me, and here's an older, experienced guy, been around a long time. He said, if you don't hold people accountable, they'll never take account for their actions. And I think that's where we are with this Xfinity series, and I think it's also been where we are with the Truck series. And I look at this as an opportunity. I think Eric Peterson, who is the director of the Xfinity series this year, right, I think he can take this as an opportunity to get these Xfinity drivers together and say, look, we're not putting up with this. Like, this is if we're going to have this many young drivers, then by definition, it's a development series, and we're going to treat it as such. And if you do these things, we're going to park you. We're going to black flag you. We're going to park you during the race. And I don't like that. I don't like NASCAR having to get involved in this kind of stuff. And you know why, Steve? Like, I don't want somebody up there in the booth that's not in my car that can't understand what I'm dealing with, telling me what I did and did right or what I did wrong. I don't want that. However, I think we are to the point where enough's enough. And this is an opportunity for Eric Peterson and NASCAR to get these drivers and say, we are not putting up with that. And if you do it, we are going to penalize you. If we see you intentionally wrecking somebody, if we see this kind of stuff, we're going to penalize you. And it shouldn't be on a Tuesday or Wednesday. It should be then. And I just think that's where we are. And I don't think that the Cup Series needs to be policed in the same way that the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series are policed. You know, me, Dale Jr., Justin Marks, Kevin Harvick, we own the Cars Tour. We wouldn't put up with this.
Right.
Right? So I just think that this is I'm talking about the negative, but I'm looking at it as an opportunity. This could be a turning point, right? And how this sport goes forward at Truck and Xfinity Series level, because that's no good. Like what we watched on Saturday, that was not good for anybody. Well, Austin Hill, but everybody else, it was not good for anybody. And I just think NASCAR's got to put their foot down and got to demand more of these drivers.
Yeah, the car was a shift in rules and interpretations and how you were going to police the car. And now I think something has to be done behind the wheel, because I'm going to read a quote. This is from Racing Insights, but this is a Sammy Smith quote. I know everyone is going to be mad and upset at me and say I'm a dirty driver, but I don't care because everybody does it. And if I was just going to accept it and finish second today, then that just wasn't going to sit well with me. The problem is he was second. Like, he was second. He was going to run second. And that has to be okay, right? You can't, people say it's the win and you advance. And I do agree that the format has encouraged, allowed, perpetrated, use whatever word you want, that a moment can mean more than what it once did, right? Winning a race has always been huge, but now the rewards for that win are bigger on a season-long scale with the win and you advance and all those different things. And that, I think, is the reason why NASCAR has to step in. I do like your point, the difference between Cup, Xfinity, and trucks. They do need to be policed different. I'm not sure if Cup is ready to be completely free of policing. I don't know how you do it yet, but I do believe that the only ones that can do it are drivers. I work a lot of races with you next to me in the booth, and for a fan that watches, when we see a wreck, you're going to hear Jeff's voice break down the replay before mine 99 out of 100 times, because while I have watched 1,000 laps, well, not 1,000, 10,000 laps at Martinsville, and I know what it takes to do it, and I've seen all the data, I don't have the ability. I can't tell my hands and feet to drive a car that way, or I would have been a race car driver. So I also don't need to be the first guy to analyze it. I like race car drivers to analyze it. So in other series, there's stewards that kind of look at this, right? So I don't know how you do this, but is it Cup guys, right? Is it Cup guys and the series director that sits in the truck in the Xfinity series booth? Because all these drivers, their goal is to make it to Cup. So is it the Cup level drivers who get to set what's acceptable or unacceptable, right? A couple drivers and the series director, and the three of them, if two of the three agree, then it's a penalty. I don't know how you do it, but I do agree that people have to be saved from themselves at times, and enough's enough. I think this is in the same realm of the shenanigans we saw at the Cup race last year at Martinsville for the playoffs, when people may or may not have been trying their best, and there may have been orders, and people were trying to manipulate the finish and the points and all that stuff. This kind of goes with the same thing. If you're a ticket holder and you come in, I want to see the best effort of driving a race car. And what Sammy Smith did, in my opinion, is not driving. Wrecking someone at that level. And like you said, it was a race full. Sammy gets the focus because it was the finish. But It was a race full of this. So I think you and I agree. I think everyone agrees. But Kevin Harvick is hard on this. And I have to agree with him that, the Tuesday penalties lose some luster. I think there are some reasons that they have to be done on Tuesday at times. But I think an in-the-moment penalty, I do like if I tune into a sporting event, I shouldn't have to check back midweek to see what the results really should have been. I like to know it was official, so for that reason, I think it needs to happen middle of the week. It needs to happen race day.
I understand. I get a little nervous when we're asking NASCAR to make a call, because I can tell you that I know of two examples where when I went back and watched a replay, it looked like I intentionally wrecked people, and I honestly did not, and it looked like fully Jeff Burton intended to wreck that guy, and I didn't. Yeah. However, does that matter? Right? I don't know if that matters. And if intent, does that matter or not? So, I just think it's an opportunity, and I'm not piling on Sammy Smith, because I think it was a race full of it. I disagree with Sammy Smith, but I've said this many times in the booth. People have heard me say this. I take what drivers say right after an event with a grain of salt.
Right.
Because you're full of emotion. You know what I mean? And we all, he said this. I know he said, but he said other people do that. Well, not from that far back, drive in like that. That's a rare thing. But again, I'm not piling on Sammy Smith. He's I like him. He's a good guy. He's a young driver trying to make his way. I mean, look, man, all of them are. And so I have a lot of respect for that. I've been there. I've done that. I know how hard it is. And I know how, it's stressful when you're trying to make your way in this world. And I have a lot of respect for those guys trying to do it. But I just think this is an opportunity. And
I'm going to bring a driver in. He's an aggressive driver, talking about another aggressive driver. This is Logano, I believe, referencing Chastain and some of the issues they had earlier in the race. Listen in.
I keep paying the price, and I'm sick of paying the price.
Is there anything to say to him?
Not at the moment. Nothing good.
How do you able to come back
twice in the last 3 weeks? So that's the deal. But anyways, yeah.
What? I didn't say you were able to come back again.
Yeah, I mean, at least we finally got a top 10 on the year. I mean, sick of hearing all those things. So at least we got a top 10. But it's a little bittersweet, just because I felt like, if we you never know, right? But if we were able to, have a couple good restarts, our pit stops were really good today, and we were doing a good job on pit road, and maybe we could have got up there and mixed it up with them, but just,
a lot in there. Obviously upset, wise enough to know that having a conversation right now wasn't perhaps the best time to have the conversation. We're riding on board with Logano right here, and I think we're going to see what he's talking about, right? I think it's coming.
Yeah, I think there's a
Still there, shore, quarter, clear, watch the cross, you're good. Not going to get you. All right, good job. Way to battle, Dave. Good
No,
job,
I think
guys.
that's
Good
just
car.
coming to the checkered. That's
Yeah,
battling for Logano.
Eat some chicken parm here.
it is.
Good job, Joe. Wasn't an easy day, but got a stage win and some decent points today, so keep going here. Yeah, stage win was big. Sorry that quite end up. Story of the year. It's like,
Yeah, story of the year. I think that's part of what we're seeing here is the 22's been running really well, and they've just had a little bit of issue, different issues, but a lot of issues, and they haven't had the good finishes. And look, Logano's been, I think that's the difference. I think the difference is between Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Now, first of all, what makes this sport different is you're playing against the same team every single week. Like, look, let's talk about rivalries. What makes rivalries so good in other sports? Whether it's the Red Sox and the Yankees because they're in the same division, or if it's Duke, Carolina because they're in the same area of the country, right? Well, NASCAR drivers, Gordon and Earnhardt raced against each other every week. That was the rivalry, right? Pearson and Petty, it was every week, toe to toe. And I think that is some of the frustration, is that there's 9 million things that we never see, that a guy, doesn't give you space on a restart, doesn't do that. And it kind of, those paper cuts add up over time. And I think that is the NASCAR frustration that I'm okay with. That's great. That's competition. That's not these big moments of just running somebody over, wrecking somebody when the win matters, right? And I think that's the difference, right? There's a lot of irritated drivers leaving the Martinsville Cup race, and that's kind of okay. That's short track racing. They'll kind of work it all out with one another, but it's still a different style race. I mean, the long run to the finish happened because everyone respected each other enough that there wasn't just running each other over.
Well, what if you took an NHL hockey event and you made the ring a quarter the size and had the same number of people on it? What do you think would happen?
Yeah, right.
I mean, there'd be a lot of fights, right? So, it's and part of yesterday was because of the racetrack, right? It is. But at the same time, I used to get so damn mad because we go to Bristol, Steve, and somebody would just wreck somebody and they'd say, oh, that's just Bristol. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's your inability to keep from wrecking me. It's not Bristol. and so, you just can't continue to point the finger. But this isn't, to be clear, just so I'm not on my high horse, it happens in Cup too. I mean, how many times do we go to Sonoma and look like complete idiots, and I'm talking about my generation, can't run the last, part of the race without wrecking, everybody gets spun out, right? So it's not just an Xfinity, but I just believe we have so many more younger drivers. I think that we have to change the way we think about Xfinity and change the way we think about trucks as more of a development series and hold them more accountable than we have to hold the Cup drivers. I think there should be a different set of rules and different set of procedures because of that. The same way it's different on a late model race on a Saturday night, right? It's the same kind of thing. You spin somebody out, you're going to the back. That's how they do it. And, I hate NASCAR being in that position, but we have to recognize these are development series. That's what they've turned into. Like it or not, that's what they are. And I think we have to accept that and treat them as such.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is exactly what they are, with the limited track time and all the other ways that things go around. That's what these have been. I was going to pull up our stats for the race here because I want to finish with this. 44 years old. which is getting up there for active race car drivers. 55 career wins. That is way up there, right? That ties Rusty Wallace for 11th most all time. Had been a while. Dover back in April of last year, so that's a real break, like a real gap, right? First one with his new crew chief. Been 10 years at Martinsville. I mean, there's so many things to bring up. Led just a dominant win too. Led just a ton of laps. Did it at his track where he's probably known the best or has the most success. It's not a question in my mind. It's like, I haven't seen the 11 slow down yet. I guess that's the storyline. The storyline for me is really that. The storyline for me is, unlike in other sports, as drivers age, it's not the vertical leap. It's not their 40-yard dash. It's not their arm speed. It's not their pitching speed, right? It's not their driver distance if it's in golf. Every other sport I can think of, I can find a metric that will tell you when physical ability starts to dwindle. I have worked with great race car drivers. I have discussed this with great race car drivers. You and I have had this conversation that you don't even know it. You're like, no, you don't even know it. Like, we all age. We look at pictures from 10 years ago and say, well, when did I get old? Well, it happens over time. I think that's, for me, I don't know when Denny Hamlin's going to start to age, but I haven't seen it yet, right? I mean, the desire is still there. He's not afraid to be outspoken. He's not afraid to be a vocal force within the garage area, good, bad, or indifferent. He's now a team owner, reinvesting in the sport. And now here he is dominating, leading the Gibbs charge by winning at Martinsville. I don't see Denny slowing down at the moment.
Well, I also think what doesn't show up in the stats, and what impresses me about Denny, is that at 44 years old, you mentioned it, he owns a race team. He's in the middle of this legal conflict with NASCAR. He, has, kids. He's got a lot going on. And to be able to compartmentalize all those things and stay focused on driving the race car at a top level, that's impressive, man. I mean, you know what it's like to be in upper management of a race team. I mean, and then also do all the work it takes to be a driver in today's world. And on top of that, be a good dad and I mean, that's a lot. And he's been able to handle that. And I have to tell you, man, I'm not so sure I thought he could. I thought it would be overwhelming for him to be a team owner, but he has impressed me. And to juggle all those things and still be having success, I think he deserves a tremendous amount of credit. And, some people love Denny, some people hate him, and that's fine. That's what being a professional athlete's all about. But I think at the very least, you have to respect what he's doing, because not only does he own a race team, he owns a damn good race team. I mean, that's a good race team that they've built over there, and that's his fingerprints on it.
Yeah, Kevin Harvick, probably the last to do it. He won 11 times after turning 44 years old. We'll see if Denny can keep up with those numbers. For those that want to know where the flag came from, I'm sure Travis, his producer from Actions Detrimental, has something to do with it. Ohio State fan, the Ohio State against the world. Well, now it's the 11 against the world. And hey, I know Denny relatively well. I play a lot of golf with him. He's a competitive guy, and I'm not saying he needs motivation, but he's the type that that's a great stance for him. Like, if he feels like that's real enough to hold that flag and wave it around, this is, I beat your favorite driver. He has all the catch lines. Man, if he can feel that way and keep bringing that thing, then he can become dangerous if they're going to race like it's the 11 against the world.
Yeah, I agree. I think that little bit of bulletin board,
that's
that
right.
little bit of me against them, I think that's good for Denny. He is exceptionally competitive, loves to win, hates to lose. And I think that I agree with you. I think that's good for him.
Well, buddy, I appreciate you being patient with my electronic woes, my travel woes. I appreciate my daughter letting me borrow her computer as I'm here in Chicago, because mine's broken. Mine's over here. It's broken. I can't get it to turn on, so I'm not exactly sure what I did right here. But in the end, it was Denny Hamlin with a dominating performance, not just a win, but a dominating win at Martinsville, paperclip, the place he has won so many times. For the fans that stuck with us, we had a bunch in the chat. We appreciate you. I'm sorry for the delay to the start of the thing, but either way, Denny Hamlin, goes on and joins the list of winners this year. I appreciate you tuning in. As always, follow NASCAR on YouTube, rate, subscribe, enjoy this. If you listen to it in the podcast version, we're back each and every week. When the network coverage goes off the air, we come on the air. It's NASCAR Inside the Race, where we break down the race. We talk about a little bit more of everything that happened. Appreciate you tuning in.